Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast, and today I've got the 4 Modern Horizons 3 Commander decks to open up and talk about. Gonna kind of crack them open, tell some stories as we go. So let's get started. And let's start maybe with this Jund deck right here, Graveyard Overdrive. This is a deck with the Tarmogoyf sub-theme and some other stuff going on too. There's actually kind of a funny story here. So this was, first I'm going to do this, which I know Reddit has really enjoyed. Every Commander deck, if you watch, has a pull strip that says stuff down here at the bottom, but this one says Jund 'em out, which is a good little callback to a loading ready run bit. So when Glenn Jones started leading this Commander deck, leading the series of Commander decks, he eventually handed it off to more people, but when he started leading it, he wanted to have a deck for the Jund guy, like the person that always plays Jund. In fact, he even petitioned to have the commander named Guy as the gag. Like this is the Jund deck with the Jund guy and the commander's named Guy. That part did not stick, but the Jund vibes of this deck are immaculate and it feels very Jundy as you're playing. Here's a little bit here about how to play the deck. If you ever don't know how to play a commander deck, we always write these inserts here. Most people probably just throw them away, but they are right here in case you really want to know. And then you find a little bit about Diza the Restless here and her story. I'll call out that Diza is not a brand new character. She appears in the flavor text of some cards all the way back in like Ice Age era. So there you go. And there's a little bit here about how she encountered Lurgoyfs. So something fun there. But let's crack this deck open. Oh, actually, even better. Let's first do something cool here. Here is some stuff you get inside. There's this little deck box you can put your commander deck in. Boop. There's a Diza right there hanging out. You get this little click wheel so you can spin your life total all the way up and down. And then you do get this Modern Horizons 3 Collector Booster sample pack. Let's see if we get anything good in here. I'm excited. Extra boosters to open. Ooh, a Showcase Genku. That's nice. And a foil Tune the Narrative. Cool. There's a little bonus in your commander decks. But the core of what we want to crack is right here with this commander deck. So let's open this guy up and tell some stories. Okay, here we go. Alrighty. So here is Diza right here, cares about Lurgoyfs, and then makes Tarmogoyf tokens. And the Tarmogoyf token is right here. If you haven't seen it yet, there's what the Tarmogoyf token looks like. New art take on that Tarmogoyf. And so yeah, this deck was really meant to just be like Jund stuff, like doing the kind of things you would expect to find in a commander level Jund strategy. So there's Diza, which is just accruing lots of value. If you mill past your Lurgoyfs, you get them into play, and then you make Tarmogoyf tokens. Here is the backup commander, Quorum the Undertaker, which wants you to get stuff into your graveyard. There's certainly a graveyard sub-theme going on here, or graveyard really theme, I would say, going on here with the Lurgoyfs running around, the Tarmogoyfs running around. Wants to just have stuff in graveyards. So we got some reprints here, Terminate. So look at all these Jund classics. You have Attuminous Blast, Bloodbraid Elf, Eternal Witness, Terminate, Savage Lands, cards that you've seen in Jund decks over the years. Now here in one place. Here's a new card, Bloodbraid Challenger. This is a take on Bloodbraid Elf. So it's Bloodbraid Elf, but it's a little bigger and has Escape. So you can keep doing it over and over and over again. A great way to keep getting repeated value out of the graveyard. Broodmate Tyrant is a play on Broodmate Dragon. A huge Broodmate Dragon with 6 mana, 4/4 flyer. Comes into play, make a 4/4. This is 7 mana, 5/5 flyer. Comes into play, make a 5/5, and also has the Encore ability. When you Encore a creature, you make a token for each of your opponents. So when you Encore it, you make a ton of power. I know when I was giving feedback on this set, we talked for a while as to if these tokens should get haste. So when you Encore it back, some can attack, they can all attack instead of right now, where some can attack and some can't. But we ended up going with the more straightforward direction, and it's nice that you even have some blockers left over after you attack everybody, if there's anyone left to attack you, that is. Here's a new Tempting Offer spell. So the throwback mechanics that you'll find in the Modern Horizons main set aren't just from Modern Horizons main. They also extend all the way to Commander, and Tempting Offer is kicking back to an older Commander deck series. Lets you copy a spell a bunch of times, which is kind of cool. Here's this guy, loves eating stuff. He's very hungry. Everyone sacrifices creatures, and he gets a little bit bigger. Just one thing about this card is a pretty good rate, but one thing we found is with 3-color cards, just so many fewer decks can play them in Commander. Even if this card's rate is decent, right? If you play this for 5, you get each player to sack a creature. This comes into play, as well. Sorry, when I mean for 5, I mean X equals 1, so 5 total mana. Each player sacrifices a creature. 4 creatures get sacrificed. It comes into play with 8 +1/+1 counters for an 11/11. Sounds ridiculous, but it doesn't have haste. Doesn't have any other abilities going on. Takes a turn, take a turn to attack, and you have to be in Jund to play it. So here's Pyrogoyf. It is a there's 3 different Lurgoyf, one in each color. Lurgoyf Matters cards rolling on here that are new, in addition to Diza, of course. And this is take on Flame Tongue Kavu, even the same mana cost as Flame Tongue Kavu. So in Modern Horizons callback, you see him kind of getting rare and ready to spit up there. Oh, here's the green one, Polygoyf. This is a Goyf with Myriad. So there you go. And Barrogoyf, the third in the trifecta. This one mills you and gets you a creature back. This is I think the best one probably, or the strongest one. This one, the red one, of course, can kill a bunch of stuff, which is nice. But this one just giving you value, getting you a creature back every time you hit. Plus, Death Touch and Lifelink is nothing to shake a stick at. But you can tell me which of these 3 you like the most. Sawhorn Nemesis. So this continues an old commander cycle. You probably know True Name Nemesis, but lesser known is Sewer Nemesis. And here is finally the red one in Sawhorn Nemesis. All of them have you choose a player and then do something to that player. So. Infested Thrinax. This is a throwback to Sprouting Thrinax. When it comes into play, all your stuff dies into Saprolands, just like Sprouting Thrinax did. So that's a cool throwback. Final Act. This was a much debated card in Design. Originally, this had each player lose all counters, and you could get rid of your own poison this way. And there's much discussion as to if that was appropriate, because it is these 4 are all symmetrical. This last one is not. And eventually it was decided, no, we don't want you to be rid of your own poison, right? That's kind of a line we've drawn in the sand if you can't remove your own poison counters unless you really go back to leeches or whatever. So we changed this to just hit all counters. We also talked about some really wild stuff here, like destroy all emblems and things, but that's not a bridge we wanted to cross quite yet. Maybe someday, though. Who knows? Here's a take on Siege Gang Commander, which is Siege Gang Lieutenant. If you have your commander, you get to make 2 goblins each turn. Oh, Tarmogoyf Nest. This is a throwback to Squirrel Nest. It lets your land keep creating Tarmogoyf tokens. So get those Goyfs rolling. Kindred Enchantment, Lurgoyf Aura. You love to see it. Exterminator Magmark. This was called the Terminator or something like that in playtesting. But this lets you basically, if you target one thing of theirs, you get to copy and hit another thing. So all your removal spells do double duty. And the idea there being that it's your Jund deck. You're playing Jundy removal spells. Let's get double value out of them. Hooray. And then we're into some reprints here. Just so many classic Jund cards. Maelstrom Pulse, Kolaghan's Command. Even classic Lurgoyf is here hanging out, It's fun seeing all these throwbacks. Ignoble Hierarch. There's a bunch of Goyfs just hanging out here. Really got a bunch of Goyf stuff happening. It's just cool to see all of the all these Jund cards in kind of one place. And even some Riveteers making an appearance despite not being Jund. Hey, that's fine. That's fine. I won't tell anybody. Here's the thick commander at the back you get. This kind of thick credit card stock Disa the Restless. And then here's your tokens, including a bunch of those Tarmogoyf tokens. These dragons. Shapeshifters, insects, this treasure. That's what's going on with this deck. All right, that's this deck. Now let's move on to the next deck. Which deck should we do next? Let me grab this deck. This Eldrazi deck. I can maybe tell some stories here. I'm also curious to know in the comments if you guys enjoy this kind of video. I honestly, the last one, usually these product openings are pretty popular. The last Commander video was not that popular. So I was like, well, maybe I just won't do the Commander ones anymore. You know what you're going to get in them, unless maybe I was the lead designer and can tell a story about every single card in depth. But frankly, I wanted to crack all 4 of these open anyway because I need some of the individual cards for something that I'm building. So I picked these up and to get the cards. And I was like, oh, why not make a video out of it, So if you like the Commander opening videos, let me know in the comments. If not, then maybe I'll stick to just, boxes and things like that. Anyway, here's the Eldrazi little read here, The End of the Rainbow and All Life. We did the Eldrazi deck earlier in the year, or I guess middle of last year, with Commander Masters. It was a colorless one, but this is another Eldrazi deck. Although the other deck is more of a colorless deck than an Eldrazi deck. It was called Eldrazi Unbound, but it really was a colorless deck. And this is an actual Eldrazi deck, and focuses on the 5-color nature of it instead of just the 0-color nature of the previous one. So let's take a look at what's in this Modern Horizons collector sample pack. These are always so exciting to crack open because you just never know what you're going to get. A little extra bonus. And, see if we get any Modern Horizons 3 goodies here. Ooh, there we go. Extended Art Ripples of Undeath. And a foil Old Border Skoa Ember Mage. Get your grandeur rolling here. That's what we're doing with this card. All right, cool. All right, let's crack this open. Although, by the way, I'm kind of see if we can pass it, but you do get all these counters you can punch out right here. So if you need some counters while you play, you can punch these out and use them. And we actually in design, once the decks are finished, we decide what the counters are going to be. So hopefully you get the ones you need for your deck. So if there's a flying counter or something like that, there should be a flying one here. Here is the flavor on Ulalek, Fused Atrocity, which I know a lot of people have been asking about. I've seen some posts on Reddit and Twitter and so on and so forth. And so what is Ulalek? What's going on here? Ulalek is what happens when 2 Eldrazi Titans dip into a plane at the same location from the Blind Eternities. It is an amalgamation of Ulamog's and Kozilek's lineages. So it's kind of comboing those together. Ulalek has only ever appeared once on a plane that has long since been reduced to a Drain Husk and whose name has faded from memory. Since then, it is unknown if Ulalek as a being still exists, or if it came apart once the aspects of Ulamog and Kozilek that made it up withdrew back into the Blind Eternities. So there's some flavor information for you there on Ulalek. I know there's been a lot of questions about that one. And then here's this little sheet for Eldrazi Incursion. A little bit about playing the deck. Play Eldrazi, it says. You might be shocked to learn that the deck wants you to play Eldrazi. All right, let's go through some of these cards. And you'll see Ulalek right here on the face. This guy wants you to play your Eldrazi, and then it copies all your triggers, and the spell too when you pay the mana. So if you play Eldrazi, usually have cast trigger. So if you copy it, you get the cast trigger again, and you get a second copy of that Eldrazi. Very strong front-facing commander. You can play it for Wooburg, or you can substitute colorless for any of those. So it's also the colorless hybrid mana thing going on here, which is kind of wacky. So very Modern Horizons-y wild design here for Ulalek Fused Atrocity. I'll get these Detrius out of the way here. And then here's a backup in Azlask, the Swelling Scourge. Reggie Valk, who took over these decks eventually. These decks touched many hands, and Reggie kind of took them to completion. Reggie talked about having a 5-color experience counter commander. So you could play all of your prior experience counter cards and then use this as your commander if you wanted to. So, of course, this works totally good as a colorless or 5-color colorless Eldrazi leader, and it does a solid job there. But if you want to build some wild experience counter deck, it's like an extra deck you can build, which is kind of wacky with Marin and Clan Neltoth and all those folks. Here's some cards from MH3 main. Ooh, Herald's Horde. Always a nice reprint getting that in there. Some new cards from the main set we're able to pick up. I love the RKF artwork here on Titan's Vanguard. Just trying to get right ahead to the new cards, though. You know what makes colorless mana? Soul Ring. It does a very good job of that. Okay, well, here's a big boy in Ulamog's Dreadsire. So Ulamog's Dreadsire is a 10-mana 10-10 that lets you tap to create a 10-10 Eldrazi creature token. It's got Ward and Vigilance as well. Fun question, little trivia. Do you know what this is referencing? Which card is Ulamog's Dreadsire referencing? If you know it, it's a reference to the Shards of Alara card, Godsire, a creature that could tap to make an 8/8 token. Well, Ulamog's Dreadsire can tap to make a 10/10 token. Eldrazi always trying to be the biggest and the best. Here's Benthic Anomaly that basically lets you copy a creature from each of your opponents. Or rather, you make one token. You copy all creature from each opponent, but you make one token that's an amalgamation of all of those creatures' power and toughnesses. So you make a big boy when you play Benthic Anomaly. Eldritch Immunity. So one thing we're able to do here is create some fun spells for the Eldrazi deck. Often colorless has trouble with spells for obvious reasons. There's only a few in Magic history, but this really amps it up a little bit. So you've got Eldritch Immunity here, which can protect your whole team with overloading if you want to, or just 1 mana combat trick for your Eldrazi, which is really nice. We've also got Selective Obliteration, which gets rid of a bunch of creatures, bunch of permanents, while your Eldrazi get to stay standing because they're going to be devoid, so you're pretty safe here. Angelic Aberration, just the creature type Eldrazi Angel, I thought was awesome, but this lets you convert all of your spawn and scions into 4/4 angels, or whatever else you have lying around that's small, but the main use is sacking all your small creatures to get a bunch of 4/4 angels, and that's pretty cool. Bismuth Mind Render, this when it hits them, you just get to Bolus' Citadel, their top non-land. So you get a free spell from their deck when you connect with them, and it's got mana, so easy to get through. Nice Eldrazi design there, playing with their head a little bit. One thing we always often have trouble with in Commander design is how do we get stealing without stealing people's permanents? Because stealing permanents is generally not very fun. And one way we like doing it is casting off their library. It feels like you're stealing their stuff. You see this a lot in like the Gonti deck that we did in Outlaws of Thunder Junction, but without actually taking it from their battlefield. Here's Hideous Taskmaster. This is a throwback to a card I designed, Molten Primordial, although it's not name or flavor, just in function, where you just steal a creature from each opponent, active treason a creature from each opponent. They also get the bonus of Trample, Haste, and Annihilator 1. So, I mean, the haste you expect, but the Trample and Annihilator 1 is a little extra. Smash people and annihilate their permanents. Twins of Discord. This is follows the Eldrazi loving odd things by having you choose odd or even, and making it so it's harder to block. And then granting Bloodthirst 2. A very, well, let's just say odd combination of abilities. One for each of the two twins, perhaps. Mutated Cultist here. I know this is something people were talking about using with Dark Depths, and if you want to Mutated Cultist your Dark Depths, go nuts. It also does make something cost a bunch less mana when you remove those counters. So you can get all of their energy, you can get all your stuff off your land, etc. Originally, I think this one could also, we talked about having target yourself, but once again, the poison thing said no there. Yeah, the design's pretty protective of letting you remove your own poison counters. It's like one of the few rules to set up around poison, so leeches aside, not happening. So we've made a bunch of confluences, right? You know, Mystic Confluence and Verdant Confluence and all those folks. Well, here's Eldrazi Confluence, which is a colorless confluence. Once again, letting colorless get access to a spell, an instant even, so you can do stuff on their turn. And you know, three pretty solid modes here. The top one, +3, -3, is not to be missed, given that you can just +3, -3, 3 creatures and kill them off. But the other modes are solid too. Spawnbed Protector. I believe my contribution on this card was adding in the up to one. So if you don't have an Eldrazi to target, you can still make the tokens. We kind of late in the design process, all the cards get shown off to all the designers. People know, like, oh, did you notice this tiny little templating thing that you might want to change? And this is one that I saw at that point, and I was like, oh, you should consider changing this. Anyway, this regrows an Eldrazi every turn and makes some scions. Big Eldrazi boy. Here's a Myriad card. Don't miss the Myriad there. It's hiding out. And when it leaves the battlefield, which Myriad will do at end of combat, you make a 0/1 spawn. So this can, if all goes well, make 2 spawns for you every turn. So you play this on turn 3, turn 4 you attack, make a pair of spawns when the tokens leave, and then you can cast a big spell, 6 mana spell. Or if they block your Chittering Dispatcher, you get another spawn, maybe you cast an even bigger spell. So you can fuel some pretty big turns. Here's the Inversion Behemoth, which lets you swap your power toughnesses. I think originally this might have just swapped all of them, and you didn't get to choose, but there's a lot of petitioning to make it optional so that you didn't kill off your 0/1 tokens and stuff like that. But yeah, this is a 9/2 attacker if you want to, which is kind of nice. And it hits the turn you play it, so if you want to swap your power toughnesses right away, go wild. Then we're into a bunch of reprints. Eldrazi Conscription. Ugin being here feels fitting, you know. First of all, this ability is really good with your colorless spells, but just flavorfully, Ugin hanging out is nice. Eldrazi Monument. Just, you know, some classics. Return of the Wild Speaker, kind of a funny card to see here. It's like, flavorfully, what is this doing here? But it does mechanically make a lot of sense when you draw cards equal to the greatest power among your non-human creatures, which is often going to be quite big in Eldrazi deck. Mana base here is very solid. You look at all these pain lands. Like, we wanted to give you the pain lands. So here they are, all in one place. Use them. Cast your colorless spells. Have a good time. Morphon the Boundless, I recommend choosing Eldrazi in this deck. Kozilek's Return, or Reef. It's wild seeing all these wacky colorless cards from Magic's history alongside the Eldrazi, you know. This is a new art, I believe, on Eldrazi Temple. So it's cool to kind of reface that and give it some new digs. And yeah, a lot of the artifacts you'd expect. Half-sized wastes. Get some of those. Got one of those rolling around here. You can Ash Baron cycle it for your wastes, or if you're really feeling it, I guess. Although you could also just play the Ash Baron, so maybe not maybe not ultimately worth it. All right, that's what's going on in this deck. Here's the tokens. Here's that 10/10 Eldrazi token. Getting good use out of that, and mix everything on the back. There's the 4/4 Eldrazi Angel. Whew, spooky. All right, now we're through the Eldrazi deck. Which deck should we do next? Lands or energy? Let's go on to the energy deck. That just, I don't know, just feels right. Creative energy. Here we go. Now, we just did an energy deck in Fallout. And Fallout and this were kind of being worked on at the same time. And so, they were going to release at different times because their schedules are wild. And maybe we'll do a little video on that at some point. I know some people asked about that when I talked about it in a previous video. Pull the plug on your foes, the little strip says here, in case you were curious. This deck takes a little bit different take, though, than the Fallout deck did. And we'll go through the cards a little bit. Alrighty. First of all, here is Satya. Here's a little bit about playing the deck. You might be surprised to learn you want to get energy and spend it however you choose. But here's a bit about who Satya is and their role on Kaladesh. What's going on there? And let's crack this deck open. Oh, sorry. I almost missed this collector booster sample pack. There's also one of these in here. These are these tags. In case you're wondering what this is. This is like an anti-stealing tag. All right. Here's this collector booster sample pack. Let's see what we get inside this time. Still would most likely bring back banding. That's been all three of ours so far. We also got a Crabomination for all those Affinity fans out there in that extended art. And a foil Evolution Witness. Throw back to Eternal Witness right there. Cool. Okay, let's clear these out of the way and open this up. All right, so here is Satya, the Aetherflux Genius. I think this was Henry Davis's card. Henry ended up leaving Wizards eventually, but he worked on the energy deck. He didn't actually work in R&D and game design, but he came up and he worked on stuff like the companion app and various different pieces of the web and tournament stuff. Anyway, he loved contributing to design. We got him on this design. He did the Markov Manor decks. He did the Deep Clue C deck in Markov Manor, which he did a great job on, and worked on this deck too, which I know he's really proud of. So shout out to Henry here. And here's Satya, which I believe was his design or influenced by his design at least. That lets you create a tapped attacking token that's a copy of another non-token creature you control. And you can pay energy to keep it around if you want to. So where the Madison Lee commander in Fallout is like a little more tricky, how you're going to use your energy. This one is attacking. You're attacking when you have Satya in play and getting value, copying stuff. It's a good time. Kaith right here lets you fabricate, another classic Kaladesh mechanic, and then gives all your non-token creatures fabricate one, so you can make a ton of additional 1/1 servos. And then lets you populate or proliferate. I know I left feedback of are we doing this again after the Lost Caverns of Ixalan card, but it's in a different color identity, right? The Lost Caverns of Ixalan card was black, blue, green, that lets you populate and proliferate, so it's different enough. There's a lot of magic cards out there to make. Here's some of the new cards that feature energy. You might have played some of these at your pre-release, like Amped Raptor. That card was fantastic for me at my pre-release. All right, now we'll get into the new cards here. Here's Sphinx of the Revelation. Sphinx of the Revelation is a throwback to Sphinx's Revelation, which is a big draw spell. It's XWU, draw X cards, gain X life. Well, this turns you gain life and energy counters and lets you pay the energy counters to draw X cards. Same mana cost as Sphinx's Revelation, except instead of paying X mana, you pay X energy. So very clever there. It's got lifelink, so when you crash with it too, you'll get 4 energy you can then use on a subsequent turn. Filigree Racer. So I remember Henry told me his idea for this one. It was he wanted a vehicle with the jumpstart ability, which is very silly because if you jumpstart a vehicle, you can put it on there, but the vehicle will exile itself once it tries to finish resolving. So over a long time, eventually got turned into a vehicle that grants jumpstart to a spell in your graveyard, which makes a lot more sense and is a fun little flavorful nod there. Localized Destruction lets you maybe save some creatures or save some of your own stuff as you blow everything up. Love these kind of 5-mana board sweepers that let you control, or give you slight advantage if you're playing a deck built around them. So different decks will want different ones. You don't put this in every deck, but in an energy deck, it's a really nice fit. Here's Ether Refinery. It lets you both gives you additional energy. You double up your energy production, and then lets you make tokens every turn. Notably, right, if you're just playing this on its own, you can tap and make a 2/2 token every turn. So that's not nothing. But if you have more energy to spend, it's get even better. Hourglass of the Lost is a new mana rock. We've been trying to make more 3 mana value mana rocks with cool abilities. These are just a lot more fun than the 2 mana rocks, right? 2 mana rocks, sure, they accelerate you, they're strong, don't get me wrong. But 3 mana ones with cool abilities like the Midnight Clocks of the world and what have you are something we're really trying to see if we can get more people to play with. And this is a pretty strong one. Over time, you get to slowly reanimate your entire graveyard, or all the non-land permanents in your graveyard anyway. So very powerful last ability here. Salvation Colossus is sort of the big finisher. Often we find in these fiddly decks, you need just some ways to help end the game and destroy your opponents. And Salvation Colossus will do just that as a huge creature that pumps all your other creatures, and then you can also unearth from your graveyard for energy. So you can cheat this into play out of your graveyard early, even if you get enough energy production, which is really nice. Blaster Hulk. This guy comes down cheaper if you've paid a bunch of energy this turn, which is nice. It is kind of a creative way to find other ways for your energy production or energy production and use, I should say, to pay dividends in Commander. And can deal a ton of damage every time it attacks. Here's the Razorfield Ripper, which is a reconfigure energy card, a real Kaladesh and Kamigawa Nyan Dynasty mashup. This starts off as just a 3/3, but when it attacks, you get 1 energy always, then it gets bigger for the amount of energy you have, and it can also pump the equipped creature up, so really nice flexible equipment. One thing I love about these reconfigure cards is being able to reconfigure onto a creature, and then if the board gets swept, it just falls off and you're left with something still, so don't sleep on the ability to just put it on a creature. Silverquill Lecture. We've had this idea for a while. We've been waiting for the right place to deploy it, and finally it got printed here. Creature spells you cast have demonstrate. It's kind of a mass demonstrate granter, and it's pretty wild and fun. Games can get pretty wacky, especially given this affects all manner of spells. So you can choose which opponent gets it. You get to double up on it. If you even want to be generous and give your opponent a commander, your second copy won't do anything because it'll legend rule itself, but you can do all kinds of really wild political things with this. It's a very cool and unique card. The Overclocked Electromancer. This is one that can both get you energy, get stronger, it grows. I know this one went through a lot of iteration, so there's a lot of very carefully tuned knobs here. You get 1 counter for 3 energy. You double its power when you attack. When it hits a creature, if you deal excess damage to it, you get extra energy. So just a little bit of everything on this Overclocked Electromancer. Stone Idol Generator. Wow, this is using the 6/12 colorless construct token we first saw on Stone Idol Trap, and then I followed up with Ancient Stone Idol, and now we see it here on Stone Idol Generator. It's always funny to see that token get extra life in Magic. I don't think I was expected it would be used this many times. Here's the Aurora Shifter. When you hit them, you get energy, and you can pay 2 mana to clone it, to turn this into a copy of a creature and keep the energy gaining ability. So it's sort of like a Suvin Shapeshifter style card, Fushu Suvin Doppelganger style card, which is pretty nice. Here's the Conversion Apparatus. It's just, once again, a 3 mana rock that lets you convert your energy into mana. And in this case, you can convert 3 energy into 3 mana, so it really can accelerate you big time if you have energy lying around to use. One notable templating thing you'll find on these cards is instead of writing out all 8 energy symbols, it just says pay 8 energy. Way easier to read than trying to count energy symbols every time. So that's a little quality of life improvement you'll catch on some of the cards here, some of the cards in this deck. If they're smaller numbers, like this 4, you still get you still see the symbols, but if it's more, this says 6 energy, for example. So just a little quality of life reading improvement there. Brutaclad Coveted Jewel made both these cards in Commander 2018. Always nice to see them come back. Legion Loyalty, reprinted from Baldur's Gate. I believe this is new art here for that card, so that's nice. Aetherworks Marvel, Standard All-Star, just a lot of the energy cards you've come to expect over time. Hanging out in this deck, and then you get to choose what your favorite energy output is. bunch of lands, and then here's everything at the back, all those various tokens, gremlins and servos and so on. Things that you would expect hanging out on Kaladesh. All right, and now we'll go on to the last deck here. And this is one of the wackiest ones. This is Tricky Terrain. It's all about lands, and specifically all kinds of different land types. So each of these 4 decks kind of replicates a modern theme, right? So we had the Jund deck, which we saw. Jund is pretty classic in modern. We had Energy, which is a big theme in the main set that was maybe will end up being a modern deck. We had Eldrazi, which of course has been a deck in modern history. We all remember Eldrazi Winter. And this is meant to kind of replicate Tron or all the various non-basic lands that get played over time. And the main commander, who we'll talk about here in a second, lets you put a lot of wild non-basic lands in your deck. Land a perfectly synchronized smackdown, land being the keyword here. This deck was the wildest theme, I think, the one that really made me be like, whoa, what are you guys doing? And let us make some pretty unusual cards. So we'll talk about that. Lots of fun one-ups in here that we'll get to as we brew this up. Here's the deck box. There's the face commander. Let's see what we get here in this collector booster sample pack. All right, we picked up an Emperor of Bones in that extended art treatment, and a foil old frame Art Events. All right, let's pull this out here. Clear this out of the way. And here you can find out a bit about playing the deck, and Omo, and the very unusual commander that Omo is. You get to create, as it says, land-based combos, which I'll expand more on. And Queen Omo, she's the queen of Vesuva, or twin sisters who rule the island of Vesuva. Vesuva known for copying, Vesuvan Doppelganger, Vesuva the land, and so on. So, yeah, there being some wild copying and changing shenanigans in this deck really is thematic and it makes a ton of sense. Here is Omo right here. So when she enters or attacks, you put an everything counter on a land and a creature. Creatures with the everything counter are all creature types, but most importantly, lands with the everything counter is every land type. And that is every land type. That is Urza's, that is Cave, that is Desert, that is Tower. So it turns on all your stuff right away. If you have an Urza's Tower in play, you put a counter down, suddenly it'll be totally active. It is a very wild Magic card, and as you'll see it through this deck, there's a lot of really unusual land-based stuff. And the mana base, we'll have to pay some special attention to as we go on. Speaking of land creatures, here is Jody, Moag Ancient, that makes a bunch of Dryad Arbor tokens when you cast them. You might remember those from the Brothers' War, and of course Dryad Arbor from Future Sight. And then all your land creatures get bigger. So if you have lands that turn into creatures, this is kind of a good commander to use. But he also just makes a ton of tokens, which is really nice. Land lets you ramp a little bit. So yeah, there's the Urza land right here. Here's the Urzatron. You have Omo. You have a single one of these pieces. They turn on and make extra mana. It's a very cool and unique kind of take on this strategy. Why is Smith Guild getting here? We don't normally do this these days, except it is a gate, which matters for some cards. Like Basilisk Gate, which has a new art, not set in Baldur's Gate, just a gate that looks like a basilisk. Pumping creatures for every gate you control. Well, as you make more of your lands into gates, it can make your creatures even more powerful. So we got some desert action going on here. You can use this to sack your deserts for a bonus. Hey, what if you have a bunch of extra deserts lying around? Once again, pretty wild. Okay, here's a new card. March from Valisval. You choose a non-basic land type, and all your lands of that type become a copy of a creature you control until end of turn. So if you are making all your lands into this various into the same type, then you can play this, and you can turn all your lands, all those lands that you are that type, into a single creature of your choice till end of turn, dealing a ton of damage out of nowhere, and it hangs out in your graveyard too, so lets you set up some pretty wild stuff. Here's a Moonfolk throwback from the original Kamigawa. So originally in Kamigawa, the Moonfolk had you pick up your own lands. That's kind of what's going on here with Wonderscape Sage, where you pick up your own lands to loot. And if that land has a non-basic land type, like cave or gate or whatever, you don't have to discard a card, which is a nice little bonus on the Wonderscape Sage. A classic copy land. We did copy enchantment. We did copy artifact, and those are many years removed. Now you finally get copy land here. It's one of the longest running super cycles in all of Magic, because the first one appeared in Alpha, the next one appeared in original Ravnica, and now this one is here. So it's been a long time coming. Desert Warfare. This is a Desert Matters card. As I mentioned, this was not like designed for the Desert deck in Outlaws of Thunder Junction and taken out and put here. The designers were just working in parallel, and both designers made these cards independently. It's a cool Desert Matters card. So once again, you have a bunch of just random one-off land things rolling around here, like Locust. You've got Cloud Post. You've got Glimmer Post. And now you've got Trench Post, which is another Locust. Mills your opponent for a bunch of cards. But just having another Locust at all is very meaningful when you're trying to build your Cloud Post deck. Cloud Post, of course, makes mana for every Locust you control. So just being limited on Locust is huge. Sage of the Maze is a 3-mana creature that makes 2 mana, which is already pretty solid. But then it lets you animate your lands into creatures, where X is the twice number of gates you control. It lets you tap a gate to untap this. So basically lets all your gates tap for 2 mana, because this taps for 2 mana, so you can tap a gate to untap this, and then this can tap 2 mana on its own. So actually, you're capable of a ton of mana generation with this card. You play this on turn 3 after playing some gates. Turn 4, you untap, and if you have 3, I guess you probably wouldn't have an untapped third gate. You have to be a Basilisk Gate or something. But even just 2 gates in play at that time, you can tap for 6 mana with this card. And then, whatever other mana you have from your lands lying around. So, can make a lot of mana there. Here's a random one-off Desert. Lets you sack creatures for mana, which can be relevant. We've seen just being able to sack a creature at all being meaningful on High Market from Mercadian Masks block. And this lets you also turn your deserts, your spare deserts, like this one, or any other ones you have lying around, into turning a creature in your graveyard into a zombie. So that's kind of cool. The Rampant Frogantula. Yeah, we talked about this one a lot because this is a really wild card. Because it cares about the number of players have lost the game. So it's 3 mana, 3/3 trample, sure. Gives you some lands and you hit people, sure. But if anyone has lost the game, it's a 13/13. So I love that you can attack somebody, and if they're another player's feeling very spiteful, maybe they'll concede in response and let your Frogantula kill them. Probably not, but you can dream. Here's Sunken Palace, just a individual cave that's kind of cool. Lets you clone your spells, copy your spells, including your creatures, if you have enough cards in your graveyard. Getting 7 cards in your graveyard, not that hard, so kind of like a threshold ability. Here's a brand new land, Horizon of Progress, that lets you ramp yourself. So it's like Reflecting Pool, you pay 1 life, but whatever, you got the life to spend. It lets you both ramp yourself, and then you can eventually sack to draw a card. So nice way to get stuff into your graveyard, a good land to loop back. Planar Nexus is a really wild one. It has every non-basic land type. So this is Omo on land, basically. It has whatever you want. Sphere, Tower, Urzas, Cave, Deserts. It's all there. And it works. Here's Aggressive Biomancy. This is, I think, quite a strong sleeper. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this one, but for 4 mana, it's like a clone your creature and probably kill their creature because you make them fight. For 6 mana, you get 2 copies and kill off 2 of their things. So just the rate on this is pretty solid, and I know Green-Blue has a ton of cards to choose from, but I think this one is pretty reasonable. Although, here's one I think a lot of people have been talking about, and I don't need to tell you probably why it's awesome, but Talon, Gates of Madara. This is a wild throwback to an old Nicol Bolas storyline where Nicol Bolas' spark was kept here for a while until he was reawakened and revived. It's its whole thing. But this phases out one of their creatures on a land, which is quite reasonable. They can't block with it or whatever. And you can also put it in play at instant speed for 4 mana, which both accelerates you and can get rid of one of their creatures mid-combat or something, and it fixes your mana. Very solid card. I expect to see that played for a long time to come. Then we'll kind of go through some of the other stuff here. Mags of the Candelabra. I think this is new art on the Magus by Jason Engel, so that's kind of cool. And there's a lot of awesome utility lands. Like, there's so many utility lands you'll see hiding out in these decks, and random cool abilities. Like Yavimaya. Hey, that's here. Just making all your stuff forests. Sure. New art for Dryad of the Legion Grove, by the way. No, that's a big reprint. Glad to have that one back. Temple of Mystery. Yeah. Just, Uro is here. The Vesuva, of course, the namesake of when I think of copying things, and Vesuva is the card I think of. Dark Depths. You can try and crack it to get Merit Lodge if you're feeling crafty. Thespian Stage combos with Dark Depths hang out right here together. So you can, if you copied Dark Depths with Thespian Stage, then it'll have no counters on it, and it'll die and make you a 20/20. So just a little fun combo for you there. Hidden Cataract. These are the 2 new Discover lands that are both caves. Here's another cave hanging out in here. Here's the Cloud Post. So as you make all more stuff locuses, loci. You can make a lot more mana with it. Just so many wild, wacky lands, and I love it. I love seeing it. Poison Dart Frog makes an appearance. Glimmer Post, Campus. So yeah, a lot of wild stuff happening with Omo. It is a really unusual commander, and I cannot wait to see what people build with it. But there you go. There's opening up the commander decks. I'll talk with you again soon, and in the meantime, may you have fun thinking and playing with Modern Horizons 3 Commander. And remember, everybody, you got this.